Hello students, today we are going to start the first chapter of Flamingo and the name of the lesson is The Last Lesson. This lesson is written by Alphonse Daudet. Before starting this lesson, I would like to give you a background of this chapter. Actually, this story, The Last Lesson, is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War. When this war was going on, this story is written. And this story is just an incident of that war. Actually, you all are aware, Franco means France and Prussian. You never heard about this, but this country includes the present country of Germany, Poland, and some parts of Austria. And when the war between France and Prussia was over, France, it was defeated by the Prussia, and there was negotiation between the government of France and Prussia, and it was decided that two districts of France, that is Alsace and Lorraine, that is passed into the hands of Prussia. And in this story, this story highlights the distress of Mr. Himmel and his students and the villagers of Alsace and Lorraine. Why they are in distress? Actually, when the war was over, an order came from Berlin that German language is to be taught in the states of Alsace and Lorraine, and this becomes the cause of their distress. Now let us start the chapter. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of scolding, especially because M. Himmel had said that he would question us on participles, and I did not know the first word about them. Now, this story is narrated to us by a boy whose name is Franz, and he said that day I got late for the school and I was very much afraid because our teacher, Mr. Himmel, he had given us some homework and he had asked us to learn participles. And I have not done my homework and I did not know even a first word about them. So I was afraid that I will get a scolding from my teacher. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of door. So the boy said that a thought came in my mind that today I will bunk the class. I will not go to the school and spend my day out of doors. I will spend my day outside. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. He said that the weather was also very warm, bright. You can say that the weather was very pleasant. The birds were chirping and there was a sawmill on an open field. At the back of the sawmill, Prussian soldiers were drilling. They were doing their practice. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. He said all these things, the chirping of the birds, the pleasant weather, Prussian soldiers drilling, all these things were very much tempting, very attractive. So then the rules for participles. But I had the strength to control that temptation and I decided that I will go to school and will not bunk my class. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, the orders of the commanding officers, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? Now, when he was going by the side of the town hall, he saw a crowd in front of the bulletin board. What is bulletin board? News board. So, He said that for the past 2 years, from the past 2 years, all the bad news is coming from this bulletin board. Whether it is news about the lost battles or the orders of the commanding officers or any other information, all the informations they were put on the bulletin board and people used to read that bulletin board. And I thought to myself without stopping, he said, I thought, what could be the matter now? Then as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith watcher who was there with his apprentice reading the bulletin called after me. Don't go so fast, Buck. You will get to your school in plenty of time. So friend said that as I was going to school, on the way I saw blacksmith, and the name of the blacksmith was Watcher, and he called me. He was reading the news from the bulletin board and he called me and told me that don't go in hurry. You are having plenty of time to reach to your school. I thought he was making fun of me and reached M. Himmel's little garden all out of breath. Friends said that I thought that blacksmith is making fun of me. So I tried to reach the school and I reached the school. When I reached the school, I was panting. I was breathing very fast. Usually when school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desk, lessons repeated in unison, very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. Now, Fran said that usually when the school began, there was a great sound, and that sound could be heard in the street. And what sort of sound is usually comes from the school? The opening and closing of the desk, lessons orally repeated very loudly in unison, and when the students are reading their lessons, they are keeping their hands on their ears so that they could understand the lessons in a better way. And one could hear the sound of rapping of the ruler on the table. But now it was all so still. But today everything was very quiet. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. He said that today everything was very quiet. Usually what did he do? क्या करता था वो? Usually he took advantage of the disturbance to get to his desk without being noticed. But that day he had to enter the class in front of everyone. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places and M. Himmel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. Through the window, he saw that his friends, his classmates, they were already at their places, and the teacher, Mr. Himmel, he is just walking up and down and he is having his ruler under his arm. And he said, I had to open the door and go in before everybody. He said that I have to enter the class in front of everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. He said that you can imagine what was my condition. I blushed. Blushed means became red with embarrassment, and I was looking very frightened. But nothing happened. M. Himmel saw me and said very kindly, go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you. Franz told that nothing happened when I entered the class. Mr. Himmel, he saw me, he didn't scold me. Instead, in a very polite way, he asked me to go to my seat. And he also told me that they were starting the chapter without me. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled. Now he said that I took my place and I had calmed down, and then I noticed that the teacher was wearing a formal dress. He was wearing a beautiful green coat. His frilled shirt and the little black silk cap all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Friends noticed that his teacher is wearing formal dress which he usually wear on inspection days or prize distribution days. And what dress he was wearing? He was wearing green coat, his frilled shirt and little black silk cap which was decorated. Embroidered means decorated. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. He said, in addition to this, the whole school is looking very strange and serious environment was there. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves, old Hoser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster and several others besides. He said that besides this, usually the back benches, they were always empty. But that day, the village people were sitting there and they were all sitting very quietly. And who were sitting there? Old Hoser, former mayor, former postmaster and several other villagers were there. And everybody looked sad and Hoser had brought an old primer. Everybody is looking very sad and Hoser, he had brought an old primer. Primer, what is primer? Primer is a small book for beginners, thumbed at the edges, and that old primer was torn at the edges and he held it open on his knee with his great spectacles lying across the pages. ठीक है? Mr. Hoser, he was carrying an old primer which was torn at the edges and he was keeping that primer on his knees and just looking at the pages of the primer. While I was wondering about it all, Am Himal mounted his chair and in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine." Friend said that I was just wondering about all this, and all at once Mr. Himal came and he went up to his chair and in the same grave means serious and gentle tone which he has used with me, he said, "My children, today is your last lesson I am going to give you." And he also told them that an order has come from Berlin and according to that order, we will teach you only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow and this is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. He said that your new teacher of German language will come tomorrow and today I am giving you the last French lesson and I want you all to be very attentive. What a thunderclap these words were to me. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up on at the town hall. Friend said that these words were like a thunderclap for me, and now I understood that what they had put up at the town hall on the bulletin board, what they have, what news, what information they have put there, now I understood. Wretches means villains. He said those villains, and now I understood what information they have what information they have written there on the bulletin board. My last French lesson. Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn anymore. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking bird's egg or going sliding on the Sar. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry. My grammar and my history of the saints were old friends now that I couldn't give up. Now he said that today is my last lesson of French. I couldn't believe. And he said that I hardly knew how to write French. Matlab he didn't know how to write French. And I should never learn anymore. He said now after this day I will not be able to learn this language. This is a very big shock, big surprise for me. I have to stop learning French today. This is a very big shock for me. And he said he was regretting his actions, that he was regretting that he has not learned his lesson previously. He has always spent his time going in search of birds' eggs, going here and there, and the books which seems like a burden to him, now they are appearing him very dear. And he never liked the grammar book, the history books. Now he started liking those books. And M. Himmel too, the idea that he was going away and I should never see him again made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. Now friend said that all the books of French language, they are now looking like my friends, and the idea that Mr. Himmel is going to leave this place and I should never see him again, all these things made me very sad, and all these things made me forget all about his ruler and how bad temper Mr. Himmel was. I forgot everything about the teacher. So students, that's all for today. We will continue the remaining chapter on the next session.